Dear audience friends, welcome to my channel. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's get started.
In this story from Reddit, I want to share an unimaginable experience that unfolded in my life. I am Mariana, a 25-year-old woman, and I will recount how a seemingly innocent attraction between my father-in-law and me turned into a scandal involving my boyfriend. It all started on a sunny Saturday morning when my boyfriend, Andres, called me with his sweet voice, inviting me to his house that night for a surprise. I was filled with excitement and anticipation, eager to discover what he had planned. Our relationship was special, having known each other since high school, and despite occasional arguments, we had built a strong and genuine connection. Andres, who was always busy with work, still made time for me. When I arrived at his house that night, he greeted me warmly and suggested that I spend the night since he had to leave early the next morning. Although hesitant at first, I agreed to stay. As we spent time together in the living room, I couldn't help but notice the intense gaze of his father, Mr. Rodriguez, which made me feel uncomfortable. Over time, I had observed his eyes following my every move, but I dismissed it as my imagination. Little did I know that this would be the beginning of a complicated and dangerous situation. Months passed, and the intense gazes and encounters with Mr. Rodriguez became more frequent. Despite feeling uncomfortable, I tried to focus on my relationship with Andres and ignore the strange thoughts. However, there were moments when Mr. Rodriguez and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen or during family dinners, engaging in longer and more personal conversations. We shared anecdotes and thoughts that we hadn't shared with anyone else, creating a special connection that I couldn't explain. I couldn't pinpoint when things started to change, but the air between us became charged with desire. Every encounter turned into a dangerous game of glances and whispered words. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't resist the pull of something I couldn't fully comprehend. One fateful day, when I stayed overnight at Andres' house, everything took an unexpected turn. After Andres and I retired to our room, I felt a knot in my stomach. Although everything seemed normal, there was an underlying tension that made me nervous. As we entered the room and Andres closed the door, I couldn't shake the intense gazes and the weight of our secret encounters with his father. We talked for a while, but my mind was elsewhere, filled with conflicting emotions and thoughts. I couldn't help but feel that Andres was hiding something, and the weight of our shared secrets hung in the room. Eventually, we turned off the lights and tried to sleep, but my mind was consumed by swirling thoughts and confusion. After finally falling asleep, I was abruptly awakened by Andres' alarm clock. Knowing he had to leave for work early, I heard him move around the room, preparing for the day. Just before leaving, he leaned over and kissed my forehead, whispering that I should rest a bit longer. As he left, the reality of the situation hit me hard. I was alone in my in-laws' house, and the guilt and weight of what had been happening with Mr. Rodriguez overwhelmed me. I felt trapped in a tangle of emotions, unsure of how to face the day. I decided to get up and face the day, even though I knew it would be uncomfortable to see Andres' parents. With a heavy heart, I took a shower to freshen up and gather my thoughts. I realized it was time to confront the reality of the mess I had created, even though I had no idea how to fix it. As I walked toward Andres' room wrapped in a towel, I opened the door and was shocked to find Mr. Rodriguez inside. The discomfort and surprise were palpable as we stood there, unsure of what to say or do. He looked at me with a loaded smile, and instead of walking away or apologizing, he began to flirt with me. I was drawn to his energy, even though I knew it was wrong. Our conversation became more intense, filled with double meanings and suggestive gestures. In a moment of weakness, we grew even closer, and before I knew it, we were locked in a passionate and intense kiss. It was a turning point, a line we crossed without considering the consequences. After that moment, we both struggled to come to terms with what had happened. My mind was in chaos, and I didn't know how to face the aftermath. However, our encounter was interrupted when Mrs. Rodriguez, Andres' mother, unexpectedly entered the room. Her expression shifted from surprise to confusion and disappointment as she witnessed the scene before her. I felt like the world was crumbling around me, unable to find the right words to explain the inexplicable. Mrs. Rodriguez confronted her husband, expressing her anger and sadness at the situation. I stood frozen, feeling like an intruder in their fight. The weight of guilt and shame consumed me as I realized the damage I had caused. Mrs. Rodriguez asked me to leave their house, stating that what I had done was unforgivable. I sobbed uncontrollably, apologizing repeatedly, but I knew my words were meaningless. I gathered my belongings, trembling with shame, and prepared to leave. The confrontation between Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez left me in overwhelming silence, knowing there was no way to repair the damage I had caused. I had not only lost Andres, but also destroyed the relationship between his parents. The guilt and shame followed me every day, and I felt the judgment from friends and family. I had damaged my reputation and integrity, and there was no escaping the truth of my actions. Life became a struggle as I tried to move forward and find a way to fix everything. However, I couldn't escape the reality of what I had done. The looks of disappointment and unspoken questions haunted me, and I knew I had to accept the consequences. I had lost a significant part of my life and felt a void in my heart that couldn't be filled. I attempted to apologize and explain, but it was in vain. My relationship with Andres crumbled, and I lost not only him but also my own integrity and values. Each day was a reminder of the irreversible damage I had caused. Facing the aftermath of my actions became a daily struggle. The guilt and shame weighed heavily on me, and I knew I deserved it all. I had betrayed the trust of those who mattered most, and it haunted me. Life moved on, but I couldn't escape the consequences. I had to accept that I would carry this guilt for the rest of my life. The story serves as a reminder of the devastating consequences of crossing boundaries and betraying the ones we love.